Greetings and bienvenue, Midnight Crew. Thank you for returning to this broadcast. And welcome to new viewers joining us for the first time. If you like a video, then feel free to subscribe.
January 2008. Unseasonably warm weather, high 50s, with snow still covering everything at night. My best friend and I decided to go on a night hike in the Cleveland Metro Parks. We know this forest well and grew up exploring it. Snow is covering everything, so we can see very well even at night. I decided to tell my friend an eerie folktale from Pick related. The story is about a tribe of Indians that keep getting their fish stolen from nets at a lake. They hide so they can see which tribe is stealing from them. As they watch a stone boat come out of a rock face on the lake and starts coming towards their fishing spot. It has 3 ugly little men on it. The ugly little men start to pull up the net, so the Indians yell out. All 3 drop the net and cover their faces with their hands as the boat goes back to the rock wall. As I get to this point in the story, we are near the exit when we hear a noise erupt right behind us, unlike anything either of us has ever heard. We both freeze, but the noise continues. The path we are on is at the top of a ravine that overlooks the whole area in both directions. Scan the whole area and see nothing. The noise won't stop. It keeps getting louder and sounds like it's coming from all around us now. We both turn and run until we are back on the street. Come back the next morning by myself. The only tracks in the snow are ours. I've heard coyotes all over the woods from various distances, and it sounded nothing like them. I've even heard what I can only assume was coyotes taking down a deer. I don't like it at all. We have both looked into animal sounds and nothing matches. We even looked into mountain lion sounds. Nothing is comparable. The sound reminded me of the noise that the aliens from Pitch Black made, but only vaguely. The first time I heard coyotes in the woods at night, I was alone, and it wasn't scary to me. This noise I heard with my best friend sent chills up my spine. It's a feeling I've never experienced since.
I like stories that include a bit of folklore. Thanks, Anon. I'll share one that's been passed down in my family. It's kinda gruesome, and the fact that it's been passed down at all has always struck me as bizarre. So I'm part German on my dad's side. His family came to the US just before World War I broke out. This story is about one of my great-grandfathers. They claimed he saw the black dog in Germany twice. Saw it in the same place both times, at the edge of the woods by his house. The first time he sees it, someone dies. The second time, someone else died. These were important people to him, family members and such. He's spooked. Not long after, he comes to America seeking to make something of himself. He's a great carpenter and gets a job doing that. Finds a good girl, settles down, has a gaggle of kids. Opens up his own carpentry shop. Suddenly, one night Grandpa had a dream about the black dog. As always, it's standing at the edge of the woods of his house in Germany. Next day, World War I breaks out. He tells his wife about his earlier experiences. Mentions the dream. They both decide he's going to be a pacifist and not fight in the war. But not long after, he is found dead in the streets outside of his carpentry shop, seemingly strangled. The killer was never found. It was his wife's belief that he saw the black dog one last time.
I have one too. It's kinda dumb though. Family hails from Tennessee. Bunch of hicks and rednecks full of crazy superstitions. One of them is about a glade in the woods where the trees have faces. The legend is that if you accidentally wander into this glade, the trees will take you. People have apparently been known to disappear there. My own personal story. Cousin and I go fishing in the woods. I'm about 12, he's 15. Cousin mentions the killer glade. I've heard of it but never seen it. He wants to show it to me but says we shouldn't under any circumstances set foot in it. He kinda laughs about it, but I can tell he's serious. We walk right up to the glade without going inside. Sure enough, there's a circle of trees with heavily gnarled trunks. Especially the bottom parts of the trees, the boles, are very twisted. They do look a little like melted faces. There's 8 of them altogether. I remember because cousin said, "Don't get too close, you don't want to be number 9. Fast forward a few years later. Fishing with my cousin again. Apparently a couple of kids disappeared in the forests recently. The killer glade naturally comes up. We decide to check it out again. There are 10 faces now. My cousin looks spooked. We both race out of there like scared little kids. We must have miscounted the faces the first time. Or who the F knows, maybe the trees took the kids.
Country bumpkins. A weird legend, murderous trees. I have a story like this, told to me by my mom. It's from her hometown, rural America, Appalachia, mid-80s or so. People began to inhero. Each one did it by hanging themselves. All of them used the exact same tree. No exceptions. This is a small country town, very superstitious. They start thinking the tree is cursed. After the 6th or so person is found hanging from it, they decide that the tree needs to be cut down. Tree is felled. The curse is confirmed when the tree bleeds. The stump began spewing a red liquid, according to my mom. Everyone is relieved. The curse has been lifted, or so they think. 2 weeks later, a local woman is found dead in her home. She was known for being a root worker and a wise woman. Not a very nice one either. Anyway, she hasn't been seen in a while. She lives near the old cursed tree. People go to check on her. She's lying dead in her bed, seemingly strangled. Leaves all in her hair, shattered twigs and tree bark scattered all around her. Her fingernails were filthy, and some of them were hanging loose, almost like she'd been in a struggle with. No way. The town learns to avoid this part of the woods. The whole event becomes a ghost story you tell to little kids. Mom told it to me. Sweet dreams anon. Jesus Christ, Mom. Obviously, this story is taken with a fist of salt. But if Mom really just made the whole thing up to scare me, it worked.
My relatives decided to visit some of their relatives who live in a rural area. The name of the place is long and mixes words in Portuguese with Spanish. Too far from the main district. As soon as I get there, I realize that it's not just the name that's weird. There are many dirt paths connecting houses and a main path surrounded by tall vegetation. I also saw many small demolished or abandoned houses. Whole place has a strange aura. I wonder why I'm feeling this when I'm usually very skeptical. When we arrive at my grandmother's nephew's house, we are treated well. A good part of the time there is talk of old people who haven't seen each other for a long time. Bored as hell. Decide to walk randomly around the place. The place is greenish because of the rainy months, but usually all that there is almost dead yellowish vegetation. I'm still bored as hell.
Anon, come here. We're going to your granduncle's house.
Lots of fences along the way and some we have to sneak through. Everyone goes straight to the spot, but I get distracted by a gourd tree. I decided to kick one on the ground because it looks like a ball. I feel stupid. When I go to get the gourd, I notice that it has a hole. Out of nowhere, a bunch of ants come out of the hole in the gourd. They are fast, and they are grouping one after the other as if they want to cover my hand.
What is that?
I'm still watching this for a few seconds. Then I dropped the gourd and started shaking my hand. When all the ants went to the ground, then they started to go to the gourd again. They get into it almost the same way they got out.
What the heck happened here?
I was a few minutes confused by all that. After a while, I left. When I arrive at my uncle grandfather's house, I see everyone talking. It's a few more long hours of boring conversations and nothing to do. But at times they act weird. Of all who went with me, I was the only one who was not an evangelical. I noticed the annoyance of everyone there when my grandmother and my uncle talk about these things. They shut up and get incredibly serious, looking at us with a bizarre look. Even some who were in the kitchen stop eating and drop the cutlery that hits the plate. They look like programmed NPCs. After that, there is a short silence, and my relatives who came with me started talking again. They try to change the subject. But sometimes the conversation would turn to these topics, and this reaction would happen again. On the way to the house where we were, my uncle says that almost everyone there is a Jehovah's Witness. I've seen many people disagree with each other's religion, but with these reactions, I swear I've never seen before. The rest of the day was just as boring. Night falls. The place gets even weirder. Not even more than 3 lamp posts. I take my flashlight and walk around. When my grandma's nephew sees what I was doing, then he is surprised. He says that I am courageous because there are many strange things there. I'm skeptical and say I don't believe in these things. Now he completes what he said by adding that there are many sightings of a headless man around there. I want to laugh but stay serious. I go into the house and go to sleep. Next day, I wake up and remember having dreamed something strange. The dream had a headless man riding a strange horse. Think I probably dreamed this because I heard about it before going to sleep. The second day was just as boring as the first. That's all there is to this place. Boredom and rumors. My grandmother's nephew says he saw a maned wolf there once. Still says it tried to attack him, I question it in my head. Maned wolves are fruitful and docile. By the way, they are not even part of that biome. And again I'm bombarded with stories of the headless man. It seems that everyone there saw things that shouldn't be there. They are also easily manipulated and alienated. On the last day there, my uncle and I went to my grandmother's brother's son's house. They treat us well, but when my uncle says these things about heaven, they get serious as if they were in another dimension. The guy keeps looking at us with a weird face. We say goodbye and let's pack our bags. The night falls. My uncle decides to go there again and asks me to go with the flashlight. When we get there, he's all alone. He's watching TV. It's a weird show showing national parks. He seems to have been there for hours watching that. My uncle tries to talk, but he's practically talking to himself. I say I'll wait in the car and leave. The whole trip back I was thinking, what is wrong with that place?
Be me. Middle school, sometime around 2012 or 2013. My friend group and I got interested in the paranormal and decided to go ghost hunting. We go to each of our houses one at a time to see if we can catch anything. We check out mine, nothing. We check out my buddy's, nothing. There are 4 of us. We went to my other buddy's house. He had just gotten a thermal camera. His family was loaded. His family was away on vacation for the weekend, including his little brother, so it was only us in the house on a rural property. Search around for a while on the main floor, nothing. Search on the upper floors, we get weird thermal orbs in one of the bedrooms, and then we proceed into the attic. We decided to conduct an EVP session with a voice recorder. After boosting the audio, we think we catch some kind of muttered whispering in the background, but nothing extraordinary. A friend claims that the basement is where he always feels unsafe, especially near the workout room. We go down there and it starts to get a little cold, but we brush it off. We walk toward and then go into the workout room. We had the stairwell lights on, but all other lights in the basement were off. It was very dim, but even without your flashlight, you could see the end of the workout room. It was a solid 40 feet away. Out of nowhere, all electronic equipment fails, like dominoes, all within 30 seconds of each other, including cell phones, flashlights, voice recorders, laptop, thermal camera. Everything being dead, one friend says we have been investigating for a while, and now that our equipment is dead, perhaps we should just call it a day. Another remarks that it was strange how all equipment died at once. Another friend agrees. I then propose we should ask for physical signs. If there is something here with us, I say, whoever is with us, if you were in the attic with us before, can you knock on the opposite wall from us 3 times? Quite a firm knock, not quite a police knock, but not friendly either. Me and all my buddies jump in shock and horror, and a couple let out screams and another whimpers. I'm shaking, but I try to maintain some semblance of calmness and control. Whoa, 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 guys, relax. It could have been some kind of infrastructure issue or a pipe or something. Could have been a coincidence. After a few brief moments, I then ask, if that was you who just knocked 3 times on that wall, could you knock 5 more times for me? The knocking is a bit more aggressive this time. We all scream and run out of the house in pure terror. We sit outside on the rock wall facing his house, completely silent except for our panting. Most of us are too afraid to go inside to get our stuff. Eventually we do, and we all go to our respective homes. I'll never forget, and I have no clue WTF happened.
When I was growing up, I lived in a very rural area, and I went to this elementary school that was, for whatever reason, in a section of this giant brick building located at the end of a dirt road. There weren't many other students. Probably 12 kids in total went to it, and most of them were my grade. The weirdest thing about the building was, on the outside, it looked massive. I remember even my mom mentioning it a few times while talking on the phone, but the inside was tiny. It was clearly a 2-story building, but there weren't any stairs, and only about 6 rooms you could actually get to. And the largest was the gym, which was in the basement. The reason why it was so tiny is that the rest of the building was bricked up. I always thought it was weird how the doors in the place were laid out, and how there were windows in some classrooms that looked out to bricks. But this was just because they had bricked off a lot of the hallways. Skip ahead a decade and a half. I'm in my 20s, and I've gotten into urbex as a hobby. I had to take a visit down to my hometown because my grandma was in hospice care, and I wanted to be with her in her final days. This story isn't about that, however. I was stuck in town for a week or two because the cheap rental car I had broke down. and there were only like 2 guys working at the mechanic shop in town. I had also learned that this elementary school I had grown up in had been closed not too long ago. Just a few months, actually. Generally, my rule with urbex is to bring at least 2 other people, and obviously, never vandalize. But curiosity got the better of me. I borrowed a crowbar from my dad's shed and took a trip up that old dirt road. Most of the windows, aside from the windows that didn't lead into the classrooms, were behind iron bars, most likely to prevent nosy guys like me from getting in. I traced the outside for about half an hour trying to find a way in, when I picked up on the fact that one of the sets of bars had gotten real rusty and real loose, ironically just near the front. I'm not that strong of a guy, but these things were corroded to the point that I managed to break them off with just a quick tug with the crowbar. The windows were unlocked, thankfully, and after struggling to get them open, I climbed in. The lights were still on in this bricked-off part of the building for some reason, and it was real cold. I could hear the buzz of air conditioner somewhere, which was kind of strange to me because I had vivid memories of the teachers opening windows because there wasn't any air conditioning. There wasn't really much to comment on about the first floor. It was just really dusty, mostly blank concrete and laminate floor. I felt like I was going insane in that place, because I could swear I kept going in circles. I was trying to find some stairwell to the next floor because the first floor was just empty rooms and hallways, and I got the bright idea to leave some kind of mark for myself to know where I had and hadn't been. I took out my pocket knife, carved an X into the laminated wood, and walked back the way I came. I turned a corner and I saw the X again, right where I carved it. I turned around, more hallway, this time leading to an unopened red door. I'm getting goosebumps just thinking about this. But as soon as I walked up to the door, it swung open into one of the classrooms, except the windows that should have pointed outside were also bricked up. I stepped in, heard a loud clank, and when I spun on my heel, the door was gone. I tried walking to the other end of the classroom, to the door that should lead out into the main hallway, but it was like running in a nightmare. It felt like I was waist-high in swamp water. My legs felt heavy and I could hear my heartbeat. It got hard to breathe, like I was underwater, and I fell to one knee, staring at the ground. When I looked back up, I was in the same classroom, but the windows were normal. I could breathe again. I looked back behind me and my soul nearly jumped out of my body as I saw some dark figure slam that red door shut before it vanished right in front of me, just submerging back into the stained wallpaper. I got out of there at that point. Had nightmares about that place for a few days after. Being a kid again and seeing that red door. I noticed too afterwards. This is the part that bothers me and makes me think I'm just going insane. But I've been hearing shit ever since then. I'll hear thumping above me like someone stomping on the second floor while I'm outside in the middle of a field. Or I'll hear doors slamming or being unlocked right next to my ear while I'm driving or listening to music. I've talked with a bunch of shrinks about this, and they said I don't exhibit any other signs of schizophrenia or psychosis beyond these auditory hallucinations. Either I messed with something I shouldn't have by going past those bricked-up hallways, or I got screwed up by some type of gas leak.
My family has been vacationing in Moffat, Quebec since the 80s and at other lakes since the 70s. When they finally got to Lac Simard, they fell in love with the area and we have been going there ever since. It had a logging bridge that got half burned down at some point before we started going there. Teenagers would light their backs on fire with gasoline and jump off the bridge, which led to the bridge burning down, or so the story goes. The bridge recently burned down completely. Well, in the early 90s my dad saw something on the lake one night while he was fishing alone, and when asked insisted it was true for the rest of his life. Dad does fishing alone one evening all the way to the big lake. On his tiny fishing boat it takes close to an hour to get there. He stays later than he should with no running lights. 90s and game wardens almost never come this far even during the day. Decides to start heading home because the lake is pitch black at night with no cabins or homes this far out. As he starts on his way back he notices a light behind him. Game warden about to be TFO Dad. Not a game warden but a boat that is on fire. WTF is that? Gets spooked and starts heading back as fast as he can. slow POS boat not gonna make it. The burning boat keeps pace behind him but maintains distance. Every time my dad stops, so does the burning boat. If my dad slows down, so does the boat. Dad is getting closer to camp and the boat keeps following. Dad goes past the old bridge and looks behind him and the burning boat is gone. Never sees it again but insists the story is true. I asked my mom after he died if he just made it up for us kids. Mom says he believed he saw something that night. The starting point on pick related is just an estimate of where he liked to fish on the big lake, but the rest of the route is the way he went. Not spooky but weird. Dad was a very honest guy. Canada is amazing up north. Highly recommend it. Family is going again this year, but unfortunately I cannot.
I got a memory that suddenly came to my mind as I was reading this thread. I now feel scared remembering it. Be me, 7 years old or so, in the kitchen with my mom. We're eating dinner on the table. The kitchen table is next to a big window. The window pretty much covers the entire wall. You can just open it and walk out to the front garden. The front garden is big. Since it was night, shit was dark AF outside. I'm sitting close to that window, but not facing it. My mom is facing the window. As we eat, she makes a sudden expression. Her eyes open wide, looking at the window. She looks terrified. She keeps her eyes wide open with notable concern on her face. Legit one of the most scared faces I've ever seen to this day. I start panicking as I see her. She never stops looking at the window. As a basic instinct, I never turn to see what is happening outside. I lock my eyes on her as I panic some more. "What is it, Mom?" "There's," she says. Then suddenly she swaps to a relaxed yet nervous face and starts laughing. "I'm just kidding, Anon. There's nothing. Now finish your dinner." I finish my dinner and we go to sleep. My parents used to pull some jokes from time to time to me when I was a kid. Asshole-ish if you ask me. But that type of joke was a one-time thing. After all this time, I've come to think maybe she actually saw something in our yard, and she just forced herself to keep her composure to not scare me. That explains why she acted nervous after it. I know my mom, and the expression of fear she had on her face that night was genuine, and I've never seen her with that expression again. Actually, I've never seen anyone make that expression again.
I hope that you enjoyed tonight's broadcast. If you enjoyed tonight's story, then please subscribe to the channel as more green texts will appear daily. A new broadcast will appear when the clock strikes midnight Central Time.
Remember to check out the Odyssey page in the description for a second archive of the channel's videos.
There's also a Rumble archive as a backup.